Hey guys, it's Josh here, and in today's video, I want to teach you how to manage your anxiety and find balance, right? And so before we even get into it, I want to give you an example. Now, I want you to imagine that there's a version of yourself who's constantly stressed, constantly anxious, right? Always overthinking everything, feeling overwhelmed, and really just being pushed to the limits, right? So imagine there's that version of you. And then imagine there's another version of you who, whilst being somewhat challenged, is able to maintain a calm composure. They're able to maintain balance. They're able to maintain a sense of internal peace, right? While still being challenged, right? You're still pushing to some degree, but you're actually feeling calm, you're feeling confident internally. Whereas in the other version, you're being pushed maybe beyond the breaking point, and you're just constantly stressed and anxious, and you're not sleeping properly, and your relationships are starting to suffer, and all of that. Now, so you've got these two different versions of yourself. Which one do you think is going to you know have a happier life and even just be more productive and more successful? Obviously, it's going to be the person who is balanced, right? The person who is calm, the person who knows how to maintain that inner peace. And so the person who's stressed out and anxious and just constantly all over the place, they're not gonna do too well. And so this is the importance of learning to manage your anxiety and find that balance, right? If you want to live a successful, happy, confident life, you've got to get this stuff under control. And in this video, I'm going to reveal the secret. I'm a meditation teacher. I've been practicing meditation for 15 years, and I've been teaching and coaching other people for the last 5 years. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through a framework for actually collapsing any anxiety that you have, right? And really just like changing your mindset around anxiety in the first place. Okay, so I'll walk you through that, and we'll go through some context into how to actually dissolve and collapse your anxiety. After that, I'm going to walk you through a process to understand where your anxiety is actually coming from in the first place, right? Because for some of you, you may know where your anxiety is coming from, right? Maybe you are just being pushed too hard at work. Maybe you are not in alignment with the life that you actually want to be living, or the person who you actually want to be living as. Maybe you're drinking too much, you're doing too many drugs. Maybe that's happening, and so you kind of know where your anxiety is coming from. But maybe on the other hand, you're actually doing quite well, and you think, you've got a relationship, maybe you've got a business, or you've got a career, and maybe you're somewhat healthy, but you don't really know where the anxiety is coming from, or where that stress is coming from. From the outside looking in, it might look like you've actually got your shit together, but from the inside out, internally, you're not feeling the best. And so I'll walk you through a framework to understand where that comes from, and I'll also walk you through a process for like how to actually manage the anxiety and get through it. So firstly, what I want to do is I just want to break your beliefs about anxiety, right? Because a lot of the time people have limiting beliefs about anxiety, and they have thoughts, or like negative thoughts, that really just actually contribute to the anxiety as opposed to helping in any way. And so I'm going to break some of those beliefs for you now to start with, because that's really important. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to give you a little example, right? So let's say you've kind of let's say you're here, you're in the now, and you've had some success in life. Maybe you've got a relationship, maybe you've got kids, maybe you've got family, you've got business, right? Maybe you've got those things in the now, and you imagine that you should just be able to go through the rest of your life, right? Just in a nice straight line. It should just be like this. I should just be able to, just continue on the trajectory that I'm going, and it should just be this kind of straight arrow. I've got everything in place, so it should just be like that, right? Now, this is the first mistake that you're making, because life is never like that. That is not what happens in life, right? And a way that I can prove this to you is if we change this around from the now to the future, and instead we put it as, when you were, birth, and we put up here as, let's just say this is, death, right? So you've got your birth over here, and you've got your death over there, start of life, end of life. You have already lived somewhat of a life, so you know that in life, this happens, right? You go up and you go down. You go up and you go down, and that's life, right? You've experienced that. So maybe you have some high highs, right? Where you have like, love, and you have happiness, right? And you have, abundance, right? Let's say those things are things that people generally want. And these things we could consider as positive things, right? However, right, so these are positive. However, we don't live in a one sided world. We don't live in a straight line, one sided world. We have what's known as the law of polarity, right? The law of polarity. So in life, you've got good, but you've also got bad, right? So let's say these things, we would consider them mainly as good things. And then down here, right, let's say you've got these times in your life where you go through, let's say, someone passes away, right? And so then you've got, grief, and then something else happens, and now you're in anxiety, right? So these things are generally considered as bad, right? Now, this law of polarity states that we have to have good and bad. We have to have positive and negative. It's just like, we have nighttime and we have the day. We have the North Pole and we have the South Pole. Now, this is where people get it wrong. The North Pole and the South Pole are just two ends of the pole, right? It's not like the North Pole is better than the South Pole. And in the same way, night and day are just two parts of the same process. So it's not like night is better than day or day is better than night. They're just two ends of the same thing. Now, people have this weird thing where they go, this is a good thing and this is a bad thing. And then we develop attachments, right? So we get attachments to happiness, or attachments to love, or attachments to abundance, which is like, I need abundance, I need love, I need happiness. If I don't have those things, then I'm experiencing grief, or anxiety, or stress, or frustration, right? It could be anything. It could be frustration, right? It could be stress, it could be anything. And we say these things are bad, right? And these things are good. And now that creates a misbalance, right? Because we only want these things and we don't want those things. And that is the mistake. And that is the shift in the mindset that you need to have now. Because when you realize that both of these things are just a part of life, right? This is when you start to have balance, right? So we don't want to have these high highs and these low lows. We want to have a bit more balance. So you'll still have your highs and you'll still have your lows. You'll still have your anxiety and you'll still have, your happiness, but we've got to start to collapse the highs and the lows so we find more balance. And the way that we do that is we change the belief and change the perspective, right? So we're not attaching ourselves to just the good and we're not attaching ourselves to just the bad, but we are allowing ourselves to experience all of it, because that's the nature of reality. That's life. That's the universe. That's how it works in our reality. We have this polarity. We have the highs and we have the lows. And I would even go as far as to argue that these, right, are actually really, really good. These actually help us to experience more of these. Without these, we wouldn't have these. So let me just give you an example, right? A personal example. In 2023, I was, recently married, just started a family, and I was running my business, right? And it was the first time in my life where I had to provide for a family. I was the sole income provider. My wife was staying at home as a mum, and I've felt a lot of pressure, right? Money pressure, and just internal pressure to provide. And sometimes that pressure would lead me to frustration, right? So I would get frustrated, right? And I would get stressed and I would get anxious, right? And so what I did, thank you to my meditation practice, was I looked inside at myself, because there was times when I projected it outside, where I would maybe get upset with my wife, or I'd project it at her, and I'd get up her for spending money or something like that. But I knew that that wasn't the kind of man that I wanted to be. The kind of man that I wanted to be was someone who would take responsibility for his emotions, right? And so I started to actually look at my frustration, and I looked at my anxiety, and I looked at my stress, and I said, what's going on here? How can I, like, what do I need to work on? If I'm feeling these negative emotions, there's something that needs to shift within me, right? Because I don't want to be this kind of person. And if I'm experiencing this, then I need to do some work on myself because I don't want to be this person. I want to be providing for my family. I want to be the sole income provider. I want to give my wife and daughter the best life that they can have. And so I don't want to be like this, right? And so what do I do? I had to work on these things, right? And I did. And I ended up collapsing this. And this framework that I'm going to teach you in the next slide, in the next little thingy, is exactly the framework that I use to collapse my anxiety and my frustration and find more balance. But the point I'm making here before I go to that is that I needed this and this to find more balance. Now, here's the thing. If you don't approach your problems in the right way, they just will stick around, okay? There's a quote I love. It says, what you resist persists. I don't even know who that's by, but it's what you resist persists. So if I was resisting my frustration and I was resisting my anxiety and I was resisting my stress, which is what most people do, they say, I don't want this, and they try to push it away because they have attachments to these things. When you say, I don't want these things, and you try to resist them, that's when they actually persist. Now, if you change your mindset around and instead of resisting it, you actually allow it and accept it and take ownership of it and take responsibility for it, that's when you can change, okay? And so this is so powerful. When you get this stuff, it's like the emotional intensity that you feel in your body just decreases or collapses until it's just balance. And that's honestly what I feel now and why I'm so passionate about teaching this particular thing. So let's go and let's actually apply this to your life. So hopefully you understand this concept now. How do we actually apply it, right? So I call this shifting energy patterns. So if you're not already taking notes, you might want to take some notes. This is powerful stuff, right? In your life, I'm sure, if you're watching this video, right, and you're interested in this, there's probably something that you are struggling with. Maybe there's a recurring pattern in your life that keeps happening again and again. Maybe it's anxiety keeps happening again and again, right? And you just can't seem to figure out what's going on, right? And so that's what we're gonna look at right now. Could just be that you have a shit lifestyle and you need to, stop drinking, stop doing drugs, and find some balance in your work life. Maybe set some better boundaries. But even if it's like you struggle to set boundaries and then that's why you get anxious, or you struggle to communicate properly and then that's why you get anxious, or you have a fear of judgment and then that's why you get anxious, or maybe it's just you don't even know why you get anxious, right? In this little shifting energy patterns framework that I'm going to walk you through, we're going to uncover that. The first part of that is to understand, right, what is your recurring pattern? So what is your recurring pattern? Identify the recurring pattern. So what is it? Write that down. Is it that you're getting frustrated at your wife? Is it that you're getting frustrated at your husband? Is it that you're getting anxious at work or in social settings? What's that thing that you keep experiencing over and over and over again that you don't want to be happening, right? Write that down. Okay. Once you've got that, we're going to move on. So 2, find the external attachment. Okay, so the way that we do this is we basically answer this question. When I have ... I will finally feel ... So, before we were talking about these like positive things, right? Happiness, let's just say it's purpose, or love, it's relationships, right? Or abundance, it's money. So, in meditation, we talk a lot about releasing attachments, letting go of your attachments and letting go of your expectations. Now, you've probably got an attachment to something, purpose, relationships, money, or something like that, right? This is an external attachment, so it's outside of yourself, something that you want, and until you get that thing, you can't feel the way that you want to feel. So when I have dot dot dot, whatever is that external attachment, whatever you feel like you need to feel a certain way, then I will finally feel dot dot dot. So for example, for me, it was when I have when I have X amount of money, I'll finally feel good enough, right? With this, I would encourage you to try not to think too much from your head, but try to start thinking from your heart. And I'll explain that in a second as well. But oftentimes we try to think from our head, very logical reasoning creatures, us humans. But what we want to do is start to think from our heart as well. Right? This is where we have a balance between thinking and feeling, between the mind and the heart. Again, that law of polarity, right? So when I have this thing, I'll finally feel this way. What is it? Okay, once you've got that, 3, unpack the unconscious program. Cool. So what we've done here so far is we've identified a recurring pattern. There's something that keeps happening over and over again, and we don't want it to be happening. And then we've looked at finding the external attachment. So when I have this thing that I feel like I need, then I will finally feel this way that I want to feel, right? And so this pattern that you're experiencing is coming from some kind of unconscious program. So what you need to understand is that you're more like a computer program than you realize. Your brain is really like a computer program that is hardwired, and your history, your past, is the hardwiring, right? So what you're experiencing in the present moment is basically just a program that's been installed in your past. Now, when you really wrap your head around that, it's phenomenal, right? It's incredible. It's a tremendous thing to understand because you can wake up and realize that you don't need to be the way that you've always been. You can choose to change. You can consciously choose to change. So we've all got these unconscious programs. We've all got this stuff that's happened to us in the past, and when we can actually, deal with that properly, then we can move forward. And so, if you're here and you're watching this video and you've got a recurring thing that happens over and over again, or anxiety happening over and over again, you're in like an anxious loop. You need to understand that the anxious loop is there because you have learned at some time in your life a specific program that's making you feel anxious, scared, or unsafe. That's essentially what anxiety is. I'm not safe in this moment, right? I feel scared, I feel afraid, or I'm just like, my brain's just not operating properly and I'm just, got brain fog, I'm just super stressed and I just can't even think straight, right? Which then will lead to some fear as well, probably emotionally. Now, we've got to understand where this program comes from, right? And even if you are drinking or doing drugs or whatever, you're likely avoiding something, right? You do that. You do those things because you're trying to feel good, and we all do this in different ways. We all have our coping mechanisms, which is what we do to feel good. And usually we do those things unconsciously because we haven't learned how to consciously deal with our emotions. We don't know how to consciously feel good or to feel peace or to feel happiness or to feel love or those things that we want. And so we just do whatever we think we need to do to feel that way. And sometimes that's drinking, drugs, prescription medication, porn, sex, food, Netflix, right? All of those things. Now that's all unconscious behavior, right? Because if you were conscious, you wouldn't necessarily do those things because you would know how to feel the way that you want to feel without those things. So you wouldn't hurt your body, and you wouldn't, cause harm to yourself through doing those things if you were conscious. So all of these things are generally unconscious, right? And so there's a great quote, which is from a guy called Carl Jung. He says, I'll see if I can squeeze it up here, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. Wow, this is funny. This will direct your life, and you will call it fate, right? So that's the quote, and it's by a guy called Carl Jung, right? And what he's saying here is until you make the unconscious conscious, so until you make the unconscious stuff within you, or the darkness within you, the shadow within you, conscious, so to the light in front of you, right? It will direct your life and you will call it fate. And with fate, he's not talking about fate as in like destiny or whatever. He's just talking about like, whatever you're experiencing in your life, you just think that that's just the way it is. And, this is just how it works for me. Like, oh, of course that would happen to me. Like, of course I'm anxious again, or of course I'm feeling this way again, or of course that relationship didn't work out, or of course, you just think that there's things that just happen to you, right? Now, most of the time, those are unconscious, and that's it's like this unconsciousness that's directing your life, and you just call it fate. Like you just say, "Oh, that's just me. This always happens to me." And so, until you make the unconscious stuff conscious, until you become aware of it, which is what we're doing right now, then you will, it will just direct your life. So, if you want to have conscious control over your life, you need to figure out what is directing your life currently. So that's what we're doing here. Identify the recurring pattern, find the external attachment. When I have this thing that I feel like I need, I'll finally feel this way. And then you unpack the unconscious program. So if you just take a second to, again, feel into that. There's this pattern that keeps happening. There's this thing that keeps happening. And there's an attachment. I feel like I need this thing until I feel this way. When did you feel similar younger? So when did you feel similar when you were younger? Again, this is not a thinking process. This is a feeling process, okay? When did you feel similar when you were younger? So was there something that happened when you were younger that made you feel that way, that made you feel anxious, that made you feel scared, that made you feel like you weren't good enough, that made you feel, insecure, that made you feel whatever, scared, unsafe, you get the point. Was there something that happened? And it might not be like, it might not seem logically like it connects, but the feeling is similar. It's a similar feeling. When you understand this, you will realize that what you're experiencing now is just the aftershock of some shit that happened when you were younger, okay? And it's really amazing. It's really amazing stuff to realize. So once you've unpacked the unconscious program, when did you feel a similar way yourself? The reason why we're doing this is because when you understand the past, you get to choose the future, right? So when you realize that the way that you're operating, it's just some pattern that you've learned over your life, right? That's when you can go, boom, I'm going to change, right? I'm going to change. Boom, I'm going to change, right? And so this is powerful stuff. So from here, once you've unpacked that subconscious program or unconscious program of the past, then you choose a new identity, right? Consciously choose new program. So here's the thing. You can just choose. Who do you want to be? You don't want to be that person who felt worthless, who felt not good enough, who feels anxious, who feels scared, who feels worried, who feels like you'll never have it, right? You don't want to be that person, I'm sure, who you'll never get better. You don't want to be that person. You want to choose a new program, right? So this is when you come into awareness and you choose. Who do you want to be, right? So this is it. Who do you want to be? So write that down. Who do you want to be? Maybe you want to be more confident. You want to be calmer. You want to be peaceful. You want to be balanced. You want to be aligned. You want to be purposeful. You want to be fulfilled. You want to be connected. Whatever it is, right? Write it down. That's who you want to be. Now, this is crazy, right? Now, also, one more thing. Final thing, which is step 5, but I don't need to write it down. I want you to take your hand on your heart for a second and just take a deep breath. And take one more. Breathe in, breathing into your heart. And say this to yourself. When I connect with my heart, I finally feel. So you can close down your eyes if you want, or you can keep them open. When I connect with my heart, I finally feel. And what's the first word that comes up? Right? It's probably going to be something like safe, calm, relieved, relaxed, loved, something like that. Now, the point of that is to understand that you don't need whatever you thought you needed outside of yourself. You can basically just get that feeling internally. So it's internal validation as opposed to external attachment. Okay? And that's what we want to focus on moving forward. You want to learn how to internally validate yourself and shift into a different state of consciousness, a different feeling, purely internal. You don't need anything external. Okay? Now, the last little method that I'm going to give you for this, right? With your anxiety, right? Letting go of anxiety. Letting go of anxiety. Okay? 1, awareness. Okay? Awareness. Next time you feel anxiety, you become aware, right? Awareness is the key. Self-awareness is the key to self-mastery, okay? Write that one down. Self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. Okay, self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. So next time you feel anxious, you become aware of yourself. Cool, I'm here, I feel anxious, all right? Awareness. Second, acknowledge and allow. So most people, like I said, they want to push the anxiety away, they want to resist it, and they try to push it away, they try to resist it. And really what you resist persists, so it doesn't go away, it just gets worse, and you probably just spiral down into a dark loop of anxiety that just gets worse and worse, right? Because you are trying to resist it. I don't want anxiety, I don't want this, what if this happens, what if that happens, right? So you're in resistance, you're pushing against it. What you resist persists. The opposite of that is you have the awareness, you acknowledge and allow. So you actually allow it to be there, right? Acknowledge and allow, right? 3, accept and approach. Your anxiety is not even, it's not bad. It's trying to show you something. Like I said in that other slide, right? You think your anxiety is bad, but it's not. It's actually trying to show you. You think it's bad, right? It's down on this side. You think it's bad. It's not bad. It's just trying to show you something that's out of alignment. It's trying to teach you. It's trying to help you evolve and transform, to get into more alignment, to get into more balance. I really believe all of these negative or bad experiences are just trying to help us find more balance, okay? And so once we approach it like that, right, we can come up into more balance, right? Once we figure out what's going on here, we can come up into more balance, right? And so when we do then have the anxiety, we can approach it with more reason, with more logic. And we can go awareness, acknowledge and allow. So with the acknowledgement, right, it's like, I'm feeling this way because of XYZ that happened in the past, right? That's you create reason, understanding. Now you get it. Now you know why you're feeling that way, right? And then you can just allow it. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not actually in danger right now, right? There's nothing actually that's going to go wrong right now. This is just an experience that I'm having because I've been programmed this way in the past. And now we're actually going to just accept it and we're going to approach. So we're going to actually approach it, right? And then we consciously change. So we choose to change, right? We choose to consciously change, okay? Now, whatever that means for you, this is obviously just a YouTube video which is giving you some frameworks and stuff like that. I've worked with hundreds of people who have anxiety before, right? I've taught meditation, I've coached business owners, business professionals, and I've worked with a lot of people who have anxiety. This is a great framework, right? All of the stuff that I've shared with you here is really good for understanding and getting on the right path. But in total transparency, this is also quite complex for the individual, right? So the individual person is gonna have nuances. Like I said in this video, some people have got anxiety where it's quite obvious that they just need to change their lifestyle. Some people have got anxiety which is from deeper issues, right? Everyone's anxiety is usually different. Like, I see patterns and similarities between different people. But ultimately, everyone's anxiety is personalized. There are patterns that emerge, but it is personalized, right? And this is why I do my best work with clients in coaching, because I can help you directly with a personal approach as opposed to just giving you some vague kind of frameworks and stuff like that. Even though I tried my best to make these not vague, right? I did my best to actually provide a lot of detail here, and give you as much as I can. You know, I can't give, I can't actually help you personally unless I'm coaching, right? So I've given you the information, but if you want implementation, if you want guidance and you want support, you want actually help with implementing some of that, then here's what to do. DM me, right? Details, okay? DM me details on Instagram, and I will send you the details for my coaching program. You can have a read through it, and then if it feels like a good fit for you, and if you're like, yep, I want to give it a go after you've read the details, we can book in a call and we can discuss that and we can get you on board. Now, this is the best way that I can help you to manage your anxiety and find balance in your life to get back to that calm, peaceful, confident, happy, and productive version of yourself. It's really through my coaching, right? Like I said, I can give you the information on YouTube, but if you want the implementation, coaching is just the best way that I can help. So DM me the word details. I'll put a link under the video to my Instagram page. I'll put another link to a free training as well. So if you want to learn more, it'll be at the end of this video and in the description as well. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.